I just sent Carly the invitation again. I don't know if that'll work.
Got two other people that have shown up here. Looks like Carly is here. Okay. Let's see.
And I had invited a new member and the board approved, and that is Rosemary Cooper, but I don't see her. So
she was on the list to get invited.
So.
And this is Carly. I just sent an email saying I couldn't get in, but obviously I sorted it out.
Okay, great. So the last thing I have to do, last of my electronic obligation is to start the recording, which I guess I will do now. Okay. So I guess we're ready to get started. Yeah, Rosemary, I guess, has not joined. Well, we've got some material to cover. Before we get started, I did want to introduce Adina O'Leary, who is joining us. She's working with me this year as a research assistant, and she'll be taking notes on the meeting for me to make my life a little less complicated, I hope. I don't know, Barry, do you want to kick things off, or do we just want to jump in? What's your preference?
Yeah, I mean, we've been busy over the last month, so I think that we've been making some positive steps forward, which you're going to explain as part of the discussion tonight. So just thank everybody for being here, and let's go.
Okay, so let me just put up on the screen. This is basically the package that I sent to you earlier in the week. It should be familiar. Start with the agenda. We'll talk about the status of the community engagement. The committee has done a great job so far, and we've got some things to report. We'll talk about this. I guess the most substantive part of the meeting will be the discussion of the previous plans, which again, you've got a summary of those plans plus kind of a one-page summary of the summaries. And then we'll talk about next steps and next meeting date. Any questions, comments, reactions to that?
Okay.
The first thing I have to do is to get the PowerPoint to advance, which is always. There we go. Okay. So for the Community Engagement Committee, it was Tom, Carly, Jack, Barry, and myself. And it was, Carly is coming in. Oops.
Yeah, that's me on my laptop because I was able to use it now.
Oh, great. So, this is basically a summary of our meeting. We had a discussion of issues to be addressed by the plan. One of the issues, obviously, was increasing the diversity of participation. Then, the central part of just about any comprehensive plan is addressing the tension between development, stewardship, and environmental protection. That's clearly going to be a concern, including considerations about sustainability and resiliency for development in the village. And as you see, when we went through if you went through the summary of the past plans, that was something that was kind of missing. And providing a guidance for village prosperity in a post-COVID world. The world is changing in terms of economics. There are some trends that have been accelerated because of COVID, and we need to understand those and say, all right, how does the comprehensive plan react to that so that the village of Warwick stays a vital and dynamic community center in this new normal, I guess it's called. So then getting to the second part here was the approach to community engagement, and committee members feel free to jump in if I get things wrong or leave things out. we're looking at a variety of approaches, community-wide meetings, which are either going to be in person if possible or virtually. Presentations at meetings of civic and social groups. And one of the thoughts would be, which we're working on, is putting together what's called a meeting in a box, which is a virtual meeting that can be self-employed, where someone could be sent a link to a meeting for their group, and there's a series of exercises included in that they can go through and have those recorded and submitted as input to the group. And these are some of the groups that were identified as possible participants: seniors, teachers, young adults, merchants, children, students, the Historical Society, and civic groups. Another string is to conduct a community survey accessed by QR code that can be included on mailers, posters, brochures. And we're moving pretty quickly on that, thanks to Tom. He put together a draft pretty quickly that we're in the process of finalizing it and getting ready to go. The idea that would go out through SurveyMonkey on the Fairweather Consulting account, but would be accessed by a QR code or a link. And we could also make hard copy available for folks that are more comfortable with that. And the other thoughts would be possibly tables at community gatherings, which could include information materials, for example, with the survey's QR code. And that could be the farmers market, the makers market, Wickham Works events. Those are just some that we suggested, obviously, as we go along, if some others seem like a good idea. The concept there is just have the materials ready, and then as the events come up, arrange to have them placed there. Maybe somebody can be at the table for a while, that sort of thing. And then number 5, use social media, for example, a Facebook page, to keep the community informed about the planning process. So any thoughts about any of that?
When do you anticipate the materials being ready?
Probably it'll be over the next month.
Okay.
Just because there's a number of balls in the air here we're getting nailed down. Among other things, it was just a little side story. It was a little difficult to get the land use data in geographic information system form, which we have done. And the good folks at Alta are putting that together. And that's, for example, I would see that as potentially part of the community outreach materials, is sort of, here's the land use and what people think of that.
Peter, one of the ways we can, do outreach also is through our churches, the spiritual community, because they are kind of the link to particular parts of segments of our population. Mm-hmm. For example, we have a Hispanic ministry. We have the UAME, which is mostly African American. That really is an effective way. I know I've used that as a way for outreach when I've needed it.
Mm-hmm. Great. And is there a particular point person or group? Do they have a ecumenical group that meets?
Well, Father Jack from the St. Stephen's Parish, I believe, is the point person for the ecumenical group. But it was disbanded a number of years ago because of its ability to file taxes or inability. Uh-huh. So it's still together, but it's a much looser organization.
Okay. Well, probably I'll just follow up with you then, Michael. On that.
Okay. Yeah.
I see him on a regular basis also, Michael, so I can always help in that regard.
Great, Jack. Thank you.
Terrific.
Also, I'm familiar with Mary Giuliano, who is the business manager at St. Stephen's and puts together a lot of materials for organizations, along with Katie Pissarro, who's a trustee.
Great, good. So just continuing with the results of the meeting, thinking about sequencing the community engagement process. the committee talked about the following steps: putting together the web social media presence to introduce the project and provide updates, using the mayor's radio program to announce the beginning of the process and provide occasional updates, a press release in the Dispatch and Advertiser, disseminate the survey via Q code, and possible canvassing. Like we said, if we get some volunteers to go door to door, person to person, for people that are not likely to use digital formats for the survey. And conduct 2 to 4 community-wide meetings, again, either virtually or in person. Provide meetings in a box for key hard-to-reach groups, and then arrange tables at community gatherings. So that's what we'd see the process looking like. And the proposed next steps coming out of that meeting: to finalize the list of organizations to be contacted and mobilized for community outreach. That's still in process. I'm putting together the press release for the comprehensive plan. I should probably have that ready this week. The survey is pretty close to done. Again, thanks to Tom. As much as I'd love you to think that you're a dynamic consultant, really pushed the ball on this, but Tom just did a great job bringing it together. And so that really what we have to think about is the establishing the social media presence, and then putting together the meeting in a box exercises. And I'm working my way through that. Probably what I'm going to do, and this will be a surprise to the subcommittee, is put together another meeting of the group, maybe next week, just to go over where we are with things and get some direction from them about what I need to do next, if that's okay, because this is what you get for being a good group. I start to rely on you probably more than I should. So is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
This makes sense to me. Peter, I'm sorry, 1 second. Can you explain the meeting in the box vision that you had? Is it to allow them to conduct through a series of prompts, kind of in their own format?
Pretty much. I mean, for example, using a web platform where you're allowed to post sticky notes on, and I'm thinking a map, and it looks like that's possible, to say, all right, what do you see as the critical opportunities or critical issues facing the village? And folks have the opportunity to do that. And it can be set up so that they accumulate, so that as more and more groups participate, there are more and more sticky notes there that folks can review, and you start to get a sense of what your friends and neighbors are thinking. But something like that. And again, such that if there's someone that's available to facilitate, fine. Otherwise, there'd be a series of instructions. You follow the link, you come to the instructions that tell you what to do, and then you go on. And there's a series of web platforms that are amenable to this. Carly had mentioned Miro, and there's Mural and Whiteboard, and I'm sort of looking at a bunch to see which have the most flexibility and could do the most at the least amount of effort to get us the kind of results we need. Any other questions, comments, reactions?
I was going to say, even a simple Google form for groups, that the person that is holding the meeting, they could fill it in and they could have like a couple slides or something.
Yep.
That could even be a really simple.
Yeah, and I think what we might end up doing is a few options for folks, depending on their appetite for diving into things. But yeah, I think for most, probably just that simple form with maybe a couple of slides to introduce things and provide some summary overview of the issues would probably do it. Other questions, comments, reactions?
So one additional thing. So my wife is a teacher in the middle school for art, and she's taken upon herself to for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to get their input via art of what they either really like about the village or something that they would change. So she's making an iMovie of a lot of different pieces. It's really fantastic what I've seen so far. So I'll share that in a week or so. But there's also a person who handles PR for the district who has graciously offered to come take photos of the process in action. And so I'm speaking with him. I'm trying to figure out, how we might be able to use that to outreach to more folks in the community.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and I'd be happy to, Tom, if it makes sense to link me into that conversation, I'd be happy to do it, whatever is.
That'd be great. Sure. But yeah, I think you'll like the video of the artwork, right?
Yeah, it sounds great. Sounds terrific. I mentioned to the subcommittee that I had done some outreach in Cabot, Vermont, for their village revitalization plan. I did a session with the entire high school, which is 40 students. So it was, the scale is a little bit different. So being creative about how we use technology in these kinds of ways.
Well, I think there's 20 submissions about the skateboard park, which is which is interesting. Way to go, Mayor.
Okay. Oops. Okay, so next item on the agenda is the review of the existing 2004 comprehensive plan, the community together visioning process, and the central place strategy of 2002. And what I tried to do in this slide is put together what are the overarching themes across all three plans. And what came out of it from my perspective, the importance of the sense of place and high quality walkable built environment, probably is the strongest thread through all of these. The need to strike a balance in development, maintaining the integrity of residential areas, accommodating changing economic opportunities, protecting the natural environment, open space, and providing for recreation is another theme, sort of about how we manage the physical space. Ensuring housing remains affordable for all residents. That's something that's not only in the village, but in a lot of places become an increasing concern as housing prices continue to rise. Ensuring adequate accommodation and circulation of traffic, pedestrian, bike, and auto. And that's something we're going to be looking at in our plan. Financial sustainability of the village operations and infrastructure. For example, considering annexation as a tool in that process, as a way of kind of spreading the rate base, keeping the services affordable for users throughout the village. The one thing that was missing in just about all of these discussions was the whole question of environmental sustainability in the face of climate change. Again, not only recently has that become an issue for planners. So that's not a surprise, but it's something as we go through this process, we need to make sure we address. So if you like, I can just walk quickly through the existing plans and feel free to comment or make suggestions as we do this. So the comprehensive plan findings, the mission statement, to articulate a vision and outline appropriate methods to permit growth and development while protecting and enhancing those attributes which define the village of Warwick. Again, that idea of striking a balance. What I highlighted in this, which is kind of unusual for a comprehensive plan, but I think valuable, is that leading the list of village assets is a quality infrastructure. So that the recognition of the infrastructure as a driving force in terms of economic vitality and community viability, and these days sustainability as well. Other findings in the comprehensive plan, this looks at assets versus challenges. The identity seen as an asset, a strong sense of place. And again, I think that's maybe the major thread, as I indicated before, that idea of the sense of place, the high quality of the built environment, is a major overarching theme for all of this. Sense of commitment by residents, which is extremely important, and I don't take it for granted. I think that's often makes a difference between whether a plan lives or dies, is the commitment by residents to the quality of life of their community. And so far, Warwick has really demonstrated that it has that in spades. So we need to think about how do we mobilize that beyond this planning process? What are the things that can be done to ensure that that continues and helps implement the plan? Proximity, immediate access and proximity to a great variety of resources. But as Susan and I were talking about just prior to the beginning of the meeting, there's proximity, but not too much proximity. You'll see in one of the other, I think it's the community together findings, the idea of not being on an interstate is seen as a good thing because it provides a sort of a buffer and a balance for the community. Downtown and Main Street, again, walkable community parks and infrastructure. And you can see the challenges here, growth and sprawl, limited land base, declining affordability. You know, these could be a list for 2021. And it speaks to, I think, the thought that went into the 2004 plan and just the fact that the dynamics in the community have been pretty consistent over the last almost 20 years. The Central Place strategy from 2002, some of the findings, the downtown Warwick is the heart of the community. And in that document, it meant not only the village, but the entire town, that it's a walkable community surrounded by residential areas, multiple main streets. And at that point, there were newly vacated sites that created some opportunities, vacant land at the edge of the village, the ability to provide circular pedestrian routes so people could circulate throughout the village, the creative reuse of Mitchell's Corners, the Wayway on the Creek, historic village, intact downtown shopping district, large senior population. The constraints, small land bank, non-continuous sidewalk, railroad tracks, poor street crossings, and you can see the rest. Again, these look fairly contemporaneous. You'd think this was something that, with a few minor changes, like the newly vacated sites are no longer newly vacated. But again, some continuity over time in terms of issues. Community together, and this is taken directly from the report. Probably just to look at the themes, the 7 major themes: improve commuting options, provide incentives that support locally owned businesses, diversify businesses and jobs, manage future growth to prevent big box stores, increase cooperation among local governments, create more affordable housing choices, improve existing sidewalks and build new ones to improve walkability. And here, a lot of the theme is, all right, how do we maintain the local character of the economic base? How do we build local businesses as a means of maintaining the integrity of the character of the community? And this looks at strong places and then weak places. The strong places: the public library, Main Street, and Railroad Avenue. I don't think anybody would disagree with those. Unless there are things that are left out of the village, that, feel free to chime in if that's the case. The weak places: Colonial Avenue intersection, Forester Avenue, mostly because of the underutilized buildings, and the recent suburban infill that in that process, it was seen as out of character with the historic nature of the small town and the scale of the built environment that historically was Warwick. So any questions, reactions to any of this so far? All right, these are now.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
One of the other things, and I think this was like about the town overall, but this probably applies to village folks, related to infrastructure. One of the major findings from the Community Together report was like telecommunications infrastructure, like internet, and that I think has just been strengthened in the wake of the pandemic.
Great. Yeah, these recommendations, I should have pointed out, these are focused on the village. So the broader ones that were townwide, I didn't catch, and that's a good one.
Yeah, because some of those townwide ones would also apply to the village.
Okay. So recommendations. This is from the 2004 plan. Update village and land use and zoning codes. And I think there's been a lot of progress on a fair number of these. Adopt design standards, adopt an annexation policy, assess the capacities of village infrastructure. I've got a question there because I'm not sure whether that's been done or not. I couldn't find any evidence one way or the other, whether that had been done.
Yeah, Peter, I think we've got a good handle on what our current capacities are, what we're building towards, and what kind of growth they might be able to support.
Great, good. And the other couple that I have questions on is create a business development plan. I don't know that that has been addressed. The importance of village gateway corridors. I think it's been recognized. I'm not sure if there's anything in terms of policy that reflects that.
It exists in both the village's comprehensive plan and the town's.
Okay.
And we should probably look at that and see if they are, working together.
Okay. Yeah, in terms of the gateways.
Yes.
Has there been any attempt to look at the zoning related to that planning?
It's looked at when there is something at the gate.
Okay. Okay. Good. Let's see, a parks and recreation plan is something else. And any progress on that? Anything happened over the last 15 years?
There isn't a holistic one. There is separate master plans for one for Memorial Park and one for Stanley Deming Park,
Okay.
but not a bigger picture, which would include the two of them.
Yeah. And again, that's something, we don't have the capacity to do that plan, but it's something we can certainly recommend in the current comprehensive plan, and maybe define some principles associated with that.
And clearly the understanding that recreation is truly part of village life. That is kind of the gold standard for livability these days.
Yeah.
We've been updating the Lewis Park as far as additional projects, and even we had yoga this summer in the park, and other things that utilize Lewis Park as well, even though it's belongs to the Historical Society and not technically the village.
I think we also need to acknowledge the woodlands. I see more and more people using the woodlands, and part of it is just getting out of the house. But I think now that it's been discovered, that use will continue.
Which brings up, I think, an important point, and that is that the recreation plan, I don't think we can do it in our own little box, that we have to do it in conjunction with the town and the other villages, because we've all got unique characteristics that can support recreation within our villages and throughout the entire town. There might be some types of recreation that are in demand that the village couldn't satisfy in any of its parks, but the town might be able to. So it becomes something that I don't think we can do in a vacuum.
Yep. Great. And the last two, the preserving village greenbelt. Again, something mentioned in the plan as a recommendation. Just wanted to see if there's been anything.
Some properties in the gateway or the corridors have been preserved.
So like purchase of development rights or acquisition of the properties?
Yep. I believe it's PDR in all instances.
Good. And then the pedestrian circulation plan. I mean, that's part of what we're going to be looking at in the go around is recommendations for improving pedestrian bicycle circulation. Okay.
Peter?
Yeah.
Just before we move on, in my search in my office for different documents, I came across a number of things. that I'd like to share with the group. And I actually have kind of a little library of planning documents that I will list, and people can borrow them if they want to see them. And I might have them, them digitally, but I have to check on that. But I have from the very first comprehensive plan, the summary of 5 focus groups in my possession. I also have a Village of Warwick sustainability plan from 2015. And a strategic plan for the Wayweonda Creek that many people probably know about. But that's a pretty interesting study because it really is very comprehensive. So so just for folks to know, and if they're interested in any of those, but also the other things that I have, which some are book form, some are from other communities, but they all point to the same thing.
Great. Yeah, I'd certainly be interested. That's terrific. And the sustainability plan, was that through DEC or the Hudson River Estuary? Do you know?
I am trying to figure that out because it's not clear, because I have a draft form with my notes on it, but oh, you know what? It might have been through NYSERDA.
Oh, yeah. Okay. They've been doing them too. Yep.
And Orange County Planning.
Yeah.
Okay. So those will be important to provide context and also to help shape recommendations. The strategic plan for the creek sounds like a particularly valuable one. Okay. And this is from the 2002 Central Play Strategy, the recommendations there. One was to create a business improvement district, which I don't think that's been done. Is that correct?
No.
Yeah. And we'll, part of what we're going to be doing is looking at that whole question of business development and, what's the appropriate way to do that. There's some situations where a bid makes sense, some where it does not, and it's worth reviewing that again and seeing where things are.
Interestingly enough, I think the conversation about a bid has happened, and then at the same time, we might have had an economic downturn, which then prevented it from happening. So, there are kind of life situations, when things are moving, it always sounds like a great idea, but then when reality hits and our local merchants are struggling to keep their doors open, it's hard.
Yep. Yeah, and understandable that discussion would go away at that time.
Peter, just a quick note about merchants, and you said you're going to put together some specific recommendations around that. Community Together is planning. They're, I think, some point early April, maybe the first week of April. They're going to have someone come in and talk to the businesses on Main Street about like reopening and promotion, et cetera. I don't know the exact plans yet, but that might be an opportunity to get specific feedback. Like if you're looking to engage the business community, that could be an opportunity.
Do you have any idea what the date would be? Has that been nailed down?
I should know it. I can probably find out by the end of this call.
Is that Carly, is that through Lou Marquette?
Yeah, Lou Marquette is doing it.
Okay, that would be great. If I could sneak into that and maybe even pose a few questions along the way, that would be terrific.
Yeah. I'm also wondering, Mayor, if like it would be appropriate to leverage Hello Warwick Valley at all and all of the local contacts just in the village, because I know that it's more than just the village, but whether that social media or anything might be a way, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it would be a great idea. So we can have that discussion with that team.
Okay, great. Okay, some of the other recommendations, changes in the zoning map, obviously to address parking, and that's something we're going to be looking at. There were suggestions for reconfiguring the intersection. There's Colonial Avenue showing up. Secure grant for streetscape enhancements, crosswalk improvements, pedestrian amenities, streetscape enhancements. Secure a grant for a Wayway on the Creek trail study. I don't know whether that was part of the strategic plan, but something we can certainly look at as far as when the folks at Alta, Bill Springnether and all are doing their work related to trails. So that's the central place strategy recommendations. And again, you know, there seem to be similar in theme, if not in the specifics, but in terms of the built environment, the economic vitality, and making sure the infrastructure serves the village well. And again, these are the recommendations out of Community Together. These are the village focused ones, the ones focused on the village of Warwick. And you can see there's a bulleted list there. Higher densities in future residential developments, control the number of chains in the village, and limit the development of large suburban commercial plazas, review, update, and enforce zoning regulations, establish a code, I guess, to preserve the form and character of the village, lower property taxes to make the village more affordable to current and future residents and investors, increase availability of parking and consider building a parking garage, connect the community with sidewalks and trails, offer a better range of transportation choices. And, you know, those are some of the issues that we are going to be looking at. You know, again, certainly in terms of the getting a sense of parking and circulation and those kinds of issues. Any other comments folks might have?
We had a board meeting the other week, and I asked with Community Together, and I asked them who was missing from the engagement process. And they said that they felt that it was overwhelmingly kind of like older generations that participated, and that the 20 and 30 somethings were really, they didn't feel like the plan fully represented those age brackets. They also emphasized the feedback around increased density downtown, but also the need for multi-generational housing, that some folks are struggling around that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon to have the community engagement skewed to the older population. And, you know, we need to think creatively about, all right, how can we overcome that? And that may be a function, and I'll ask you folks to think about it, especially when we're doing community engagement, even the larger meetings. Are there days and times that are more likely to get younger people to show up and participate? So that's, you know, something we need to make sure we do that as best we can.
Maybe it's how we do the outreach. If young parents know that what's at stake are playgrounds and places of activity for their kids, they might be more willing to participate.
The traditional come to a meeting type situation may not be appropriate and may not be something that would attract them. Whereas I think that the subcommittee is looking at a lot of different options that would be attractive for younger individuals, and would get us the feedback from them that we're looking for.
Yep. Yeah, so all the more reason to have another meeting of the group to try to put a little more focus on that, because the extent to which we can get the younger population to participate, I think it may give us different perspectives, or at least confirm the ones that are out there now.
Peter, is there a possibility to, let's say we're allowed to go to the farmer's market, not set up a table, but have a number of us with clipboards with 5 easy questions, you know, and you know, and just really draw that kind of participation, you know, go up to people and say, hey, do you love the village of Warwick? Not even ask them, do you live here? Really just get their kind of knee-jerk reactions.
I think if folks are willing to do that, that would be terrific. Because it communicates a real commitment to the process too, to be approached by somebody, engaging right away rather than getting a postage paid envelope with a survey enclosed. This is a much more visceral way of doing it. So I think that's a terrific idea, and let's do that. And we need to think about what are the venues. The farmers market really lends itself to that. What are I guess there's a makers market.
Yes.
Yeah.
That, it seems like another likely one. And to go back to the idea of the churches and religious organizations, there may be venues available through them where we can have that same kind of, I think standing outside the church Sunday morning as the people leave the service might be a little too heavy-handed, but it just seems that there's a real good opportunity there as well to identify what's the most appropriate way to have that kind of contact.
Gyms are also good, I think.
I'm
Like
sorry.
Henzo, the gyms are also good. Like the jujitsu gym that's downtown has a lot of youth in it.
Yeah.
It crosses like all of the different age ranges.
Great. Good. And that goes back, and this was, I think Tom made this point in the committee meeting, figure out some way to engage the schools as a way of getting at the parents and the younger population.
A lot of the young couples are down by Stanley Deming Park with their children, and so we could go under with a little or by the picnic table there and just try to reach them as they sit down or go through the park and get their ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think what we can do at the committee meeting is just let's identify those places.
Right.
And that way, then we'll see if we can get some volunteers to do this. I'd be even willing to do that a bit because it's a great way to get a feel for the place.
If we explain it to some of the other social organizations in the village or the town, I think we could probably get a few of those people from the various age groups to help this process.
Mm-hmm. Do they? I know the answer is probably no, but there's no like umbrella organization of the social organizations and the civic organizations, is there? I'm always looking for an easy angle.
Well, Communities Together is on some form an umbrella. That was Community 2000 originally.
Mm-hmm. And so they probably still have, and Carly, I'm going to rely on you, still have access to a lot of different community groups, civic groups, Community Together.
What's kind of funny is that the Hello Warwick Valley organization or initiative, I'm sorry, my cat's claw is stuck on my sweater at the moment and I can't get him off. Oh God. I'll come back.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. And could somebody, I'm not familiar with Hello Warwick Valley. What sort of organization is that?
It is a tourism and branding initiative.
Oh.
And it's really been quite interesting and quite, just the group has been very multifaceted and really kind of taking, I think, tourism in a much more holistic way and recognizing the incredible diversity of this valley. So it's not just focusing on the villages, it's really looking at the whole thing and how it works together. So it's been very, very exciting to see it unfold. But it's still, they have a website and they have, I'll have Carly speak because she is one of the leaders.
Okay. if she can get her cat detached.
I did. I had to actually give him my shirt.
Oh, no.
He's a foster cat and he's little, like,
We've got one of those.
what I was just saying is that we've actually gone through and developed a list of every single nonprofit and recreational organization and like in that we can find in the whole town, and every business. We've developed a list of all of those, Mayor Newhart. And so, I mean, we may not, I don't know how appropriate it would be to like leverage that contact list. I don't know how all of that works. So I could talk with folks about that, but that would at least help us understand where the connectivity is and who we might want to be able to reach out to, because all the different recreational organizations are also on that list, like the Little League and all that.
Yeah, I mean, and also there are ways in which the comprehensive plan can serve as at least support or even a catalyst for tourism development. So I think it makes good sense to have some kind of dialogue with the group and sort of understand, are there things that the plan can do to help them accomplish what they need to accomplish and vice versa. Other comments, suggestions, reactions? Okay, so sort of next steps, and then we'll have some other discussion. We are going to have the retreat for the boards on April 7th at 7 p.m. And that will be, again, done virtually. That's the Board of Trustees, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Historic and Architectural Review boards. And again, just as a reminder, that's kind of to give them a sense of what the issues we're going to be dealing with are and get a feedback from them about how they perceive the issues and opportunities facing the village as kind of the policymakers, the official policymakers in village government. And the next steps are really going to be about the community engagement, developing a press release, which I will work on. And I think it would make sense. I'll share it with the committee and they can whip it into shape for me. Finalize the survey and then look to establish an online presence. So if that makes sense, I see that as marching orders to go forward. And then we'll look to have the next committee meeting. I'm suggesting April 19th at 7 p.m. That seemed like a reasonable time.
Yeah.
Seems to work.
Okay. And the other thing, I'm going to make a radical suggestion about that. By April 19th, my household, which is my wife and I, will be fully vaccinated plus 2 weeks. So I would like to come, if you folks will allow me, I would like to come down to the village and maybe before the meeting, just have some kind of walking tour with whoever wants to escort me. And then if we can find some place where I can get online, then we can do the regular meeting via Zoom.
April 19th won't work. It's village board meeting night.
All right, well, so
we can either go the week before or the week after.
Right. Either of those are good for me.
April 7th is the retreat. What day of the week is that?
That's a Wednesday.
And then the next Monday, maybe that would be good because then it would be fresh.
Yeah. All right, so we'll do, how's the 12th then? April 12th?
That's my birthday and my wife's birthday.
Oh, good. We'll bring a cake.
I can't think of a more fitting way to celebrate one.
Right.
Well, are there other days in that week that work for folks? Let me see if there, It worked for me.
Any other day that week would be all right.
Well, Peter, as far as the 12th goes, is that maybe too soon to digest and collate all the information that you get on the 7th or whatever?
I mean, I could get it to folks in rough form. But yeah, should we try the 19th then?
No, that's the board
No.
meeting.
That's the board.
20.
It would be the 26th, sorry.
I can't do the 26th, but I'm just one person. But I would like to do the walkabout with you.
Yeah, that would be fun. Well,
Do we do like the Tuesday of that next week? Does it have to be on a Monday?
it doesn't for me.
No, for me.
Tuesday, the 20th, we're talking?
Yeah.
That's ZBA.
Oh, ZBA.
What about Wednesday, the 14th?
That's fine with me.
Good
It's
for
okay
me.
with me, yeah.
For me,
Okay. Okay, so we can, Peter, we can hook you up to a monitor at Village Hall.
Okay.
So that's easy. And I just wanted to ask you about your availability to be on my radio show, both maybe you and Barry. So that it's Thursdays at 11 and it's an hour long.
generally, yeah, that time works.
Okay. Well, I'll touch base with you then.
Okay. And also I will touch base with the subcommittee members about the next time we're going to get together. Do we want to try to do that right now?
Okay.
So that means I have to figure out where I am. How is the Monday, the 29th?
Should be okay.
That we actually have our final pre-website launch steering committee meeting for Hello Warwick Valley that night.
Okay. That's not a good time then. The 30th?
I'm free.
Okay.
Tom? 30th?
I have a conflict, but not until 7:30, and I might be able to join it late.
All right, so we'll say then, March 30th at 7, is that good for those planning on attending, or should we make it a little later? Here's what we'll do. Let's tentatively set it for the 30th at 7. I'll send that around and we'll get, if we have to tweak it, we will. All right, any other thoughts, ideas, things people wanted to bring before the committee?
I have an officers meeting of our Knights of Columbus on Wednesday night, and I was just gonna give them a rough idea of what we're doing. And I think there's a couple people that said they'd be happy with helping with any surveys and so forth. And I was gonna discuss that with them if it's okay Wednesday night.
No, I think that would be great. Just make sure you get their contact information so that if they agree to do it.
I have it. I have it.
Good. So, again, any other comments, suggestions, reactions before we adjourn?
I just want to mention, since Bo is here in the picture, that that blight that was shown in some of those earlier planning documents will no longer be blight because of his project that's planned, development project of apartments in front of the mechanical rubber
Oh,
building.
really?
Yes.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Thanks,
and,
Matt.
and not to forget that the Country Chevy dealership conversion was done by Bo's company.
Yeah,
Nice to hear, Bill.
thanks. We're getting there.
Yeah, that's because the mechanical rubber property has been on my mind probably even before I started this, thinking, all right, how do we deal with that? Because this is great news. There are communities that have had properties like that have remained and still remain underdeveloped for 2-3 decades. So this is great. It'll make a big difference on Forester. Okay, any other questions, comments, suggestions? On that cheerful note, then, I will sign off and thank you all and look forward to continuing the work.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.